Welcome back to YourTown TV. I'm Wendy Brodie, your culinary host, and with me today is Chef Steve Grebing. He's also owner from the famous From Scratch restaurant in the Barnyard, and it's my husband and my favorite place to eat now. We just wait for the opportunity to go. Welcome, Steve, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I can't get over my experience with you. Not only have I been going there over the years, but then you were so nice to invite me back into your kitchen, and we got to play a little bit with a pancake.
Yes.
And I was so impressed with everything. Literally, the name is From Scratch, and everything is from scratch. You make your own bread and pancake batter and everything. I'll let you share more about that, but I was absolutely blown away by your staff, the freshness, the quantity, the quality, and I have to cheat and say that not that I couldn't eat the whole thing. I mean, your huevos rancheros and variation of that is one of my favorites, but I make sure to take home so I can enjoy it for the next day. It's just too good to eat all in one day. But tell me a little bit about your background. I know it's food and business.
Food and business.
And what brought you to the peninsula?
Good question. So when I first started cooking when I was very young, my parents both worked, and I would come home, and I remember kind of as far back as second grade, about 8 years old, I'd come home and I would have nothing to do. I'm an only child, and have nothing to do but watch TV. So on TV, you had your choices. You had soap operas, or, well, when I was growing up, you had 3 channels. And one of the channels you had soap operas, one of the channels you had another soap opera, but there was one channel in particular that had cooking shows. So I grew up watching Julia Childs. I grew up watching Justin Wilson with the Cajun Cook.
Oh, yes. Oh,
I grew up watching Graham Kerr.
Yeah, Galloping Gordon.
Exactly. So I would, opt out of watching soap operas and watch the cooking shows. So here I am, 8 years old, nothing to do. Home alone. So what do? You watch these TV shows and you say, hey, I can do that. And you get into your mom's kitchen. And that's where I kind of started. I would prepare things, and my forte at that time was desserts. So I would prepare things like baked apples, and I would make the dough, and I would do things like that. And it was a lot of fun. And my mom and dad would come home, and they would have dessert ready for them. And here again, I was looking back at it and thinking, 8 years old, I was doing this. So that's where my passion started.
You could have been on Gordon Ramsay's cooking for you would blow through that.
Exactly.
Win over and over. Now, you were born in Missouri?
I'm in Missouri. So I grew up in Missouri, went to the University of Missouri, where, again, I took my passions of the hospitality industry and received a degree in what is actually a food science degree, but at the time they didn't have a hotel and restaurant program. So they put it underneath the food science division, but it actually was a hotel and restaurant program. After graduating from there, I went and worked for the big companies, the Bennigans and the Houlihan's and these big chains, and learned a lot on how to be a manager, learning a lot about the business side of it as well as the cooking.
That's so important.
It is. A lot of people know how to cook, but you got to know how to make money while doing it.
Yeah, that's not my forte. I need that side.
So learned a lot there. Actually spent some time and met my wife, who's now my wife, at the university, while going to the University of Missouri. And she was still finishing up. She was at Stevens College, which is right next to the university. And she got accepted into Northwestern in her graduate school program. So I went up to Chicago, followed her up there. I took a job working for a very small restaurant company, and it was called the Prairie Restaurant, where I learned a whole lot about higher end formal cooking. There was a Chef Steve Langlois at the time who was there, and he was the #1 chef at the time in Chicago. Everybody came to see him. We would have the Mayor Daley would come in every
Wow.
week. You would have people like John Candy come in. That was a lot of fun.
I miss him.
Yeah,
I miss
super
him.
guy.
Yeah.
John Hughes, who did all the productions of all these different types of the shows with John Candy involved. So it was a lot of celebrities coming in. It was really exciting to see the kind of food that we were preparing there. I learned there that what people wanted was stuff that was prepared fresh, homemade, and not store-bought type of things. And I saw that how a lot of them were excited to see food come out like that. And that's where I kind of got this whole idea about if I ever owned a restaurant, that's what I'm going to do. It's going to be fresh, homemade, from scratch. Long story short, got away a little bit from the restaurant. I was a little envious of my wife, who was having a lot of fun in graduate school. And I decided to say, hey, you can go to graduate school, so can I. So shifted my career a little bit, went into finance, got an MBA in finance from the DePaul University, and worked for the Chicago, the Midwest Stock Exchange. It's now called the Chicago Stock Exchange. And worked there for years, and they paid for my graduate school. And it was really great to get my free MBA through a work program there. And did finance for a little while, but I absolutely said, I'm missing something. And I really wanted to do my own thing. Right after school, working in corporate America, working for in portfolio management, finance type of things, I really was missing being my own boss.
Good training, though.
It was very good training. Had an opportunity to come out here to California with Household Credit Services. They were hiring, and my wife and I both got jobs at Household Credit Services, and that's what brought us to California. Interestingly enough, my wife's grandfather lived here in Pebble Beach, and so it was kind of, here he was, we had family here, new career. Being next to family was really an opportunity to jump on. Worked at the Household for about a year, a little bit over a year, and I still had this passion. I said, I've got to do my own thing. I've got to do my own thing. And finally, I pulled the pulled the ripcord and jumped, and found a restaurant, from scratch restaurant, at the age of 29. Took it over, and pretty much the rest is history.
I was going to say, you don't look like, the industry's been very kind to you. You look so healthy, and you are responsible for what they say is the most important meal of the day, breakfast. And it is always so crowded whenever we go to your place.
We're very fortunate for that.
And you've got such a local following as well. But, well, maybe I'll jump ahead a little bit. Besides us discovering you and falling in love with your food, the Food Network and Guy Fieri launched upon you. So you were beginning to share how this wasn't just a quick little visit. You spent 2 months. So take it from there.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience.
About 3 years ago, I got a phone call. Well, it was on my voicemail, and on my answering machine at the restaurant. And a guy left a message on the answering machine, and he basically introduced himself and saying he was from Citizen Productions, and wanted to know if we wanted to be on, or interview to be on, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And of course I thought, well, could be a joke, or maybe not. Who knows?
You're not a dive.
I'm not a dive. I'm not a drive-in, so I guess I'm a diner. So I called him back. We went through this whole process, interviewing process. It's very intensive of what they put you through, and the sharing of recipes and sharing of concepts and philosophies. And we were chosen as one of the restaurants. There were 7 restaurants that Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives came to do a production in 2014, and we were one of them that was chosen. And it was absolutely amazing on what that did for us. We were already a great restaurant, in my opinion. We were very conscientious of being fresh. I don't like to use additives. I mean, I even make my own baking powder. I don't, because they store-bought baking powder sometimes has aluminum in it, and I, do a cream of tartar and baking soda. Doing really true ingredients that are trying to stay away from preservatives and any artificial flavors. I really believe that if you give people great, fresh, high-quality products, they'll enjoy them so much that they come back. And so far, it's working. So getting in with Food Network and being involved with Guy Fieri, and shockingly enough, here comes down the stairs Robert Irvine, and Guy walks into the restaurant and says, "That's it. Robert's cooking with us today. If anybody has a problem with that, they can see me." So we spent 2 hours cooking and having a great time. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. Guy Fieri, super nice man. Can't say enough positive things about him. And of course, Robert Irvine, super great as well. And I can't ever thank them enough for what they've done for my business, because it took my little restaurant in the basement of the barnyard, which still is a hard place to find.
Yes.
Hard place to find. But it took my little restaurant, which was doing very well, and just put it out into the spotlight to national TV, which really has just propelled us to some great things. And that, to me, is where I'm very fortunate and very lucky and blessed to be in the position where we are. So that's what we did in 2014, and here we are now, 2017, and we're still going extremely strong. Like you said, we have a wait out on weekends. There's a wait in the summertime. There's a small wait. We've increased the size of our restaurant. We now seat over 130 people, and we get that breakfast thing going, just like you said.
To see the way your staff move in and out with such precision and warmth. I mean, they really make you feel welcome.
Yeah.
Because I think I met you through a dear friend that we both lost,
Yes.
Andre Lengacher.
Yeah.
And he brought you in to our Le Toque Blanc group, a chef's group. Teeny and I were talking about that a little bit. And so I got reintroduced to your restaurant again. And not only is there a wonderful local community of chefs that all admire and appreciate each other, but the barnyard in and of itself has a wonderful little synergy to it as well. So I've enjoyed just the atmosphere of the barnyard and the new additions that you've made.
Yeah, that's been it's been challenging because while we've increased our seating capacity, we've really been limited on our kitchen capacity. And you can add more cooks and you can add more seats, but it's difficult a lot of times to make the hood bigger, add more burners, things like that. So that's been the challenging part, is to kind of create a menu that is simple enough but yet complex enough to be available for everybody. And I think that's one of the things that I really have focused on with breakfast, because breakfast, a lot of people think of it as bacon and eggs. And anybody can cook bacon and eggs at home, and they can do a great job of doing it.
Not everybody. Eggs are tricky.
They can be tricky, but most people know how to do a scrambled egg here or there.
Yes.
That's not too difficult. But what I like to do is create things that are above and beyond that. So we took, like you said, we make our own breads. We make our own brioche French toast, which people would go crazy for. And then instead of just dipping it in an egg wash batter, I said, let's kick that up with a little real maple syrup with that, and a little bit of nutmeg and a little bit of cinnamon, and it just makes the flavor profile so much better on food. And that's kind of how my philosophy is. Let's take a look at some of the old classics and let's make them better. How can we make things more exciting? People to try. We'll use Eggs Benedict. Everybody knows Eggs Benedict. You got traditionally Canadian bacon on top of an English muffin and eggs poached hollandaise. We'll kick it up and say, let's do a Mexican eggs Benedict. And we'll take our homemade chorizo and we'll mix that with some tomato and some onion and some garlic, and then we'll put that onto the English muffin, put the poached egg on it, and then we'll use maybe a chipotle hollandaise. So we add a little chipotle pepper. So taking things to a little bit different level.
Doing your own
and doing our own thing, and still keeping it exciting for breakfast, because that to me is the most important thing about running a business. Always looking at being better than you were yesterday and coming up with new ideas and getting people excited to come back and say, hey, what are you going to do this weekend? I mean, I go to stores and I'll see people who come in and they'll say, when are you going to run the chicken and waffles again? And so we do this chicken and waffles.
That was a huge thing. What is the history behind that? Because I heard it was sort of a southern dish.
It's very southern. Roscoe's down in L.A. made it very popular. Okay. They do a wonderful, historically, they are the king of chicken and waffles.
Good, it's a California,
it's a California thing.
Yay.
But we kind of took it to a different level of not just using bone-in chicken. We use, I take chicken tenderloins. I don't like to use the chicken breasts because sometimes they're a little tougher, but the tenderloins,
very tender,
very flavorful. Good white meat to use, skinless, very low and lower in calories than regular chicken. So we'll take those and we'll marinate that overnight. Buttermilk, a little bit of maple sugar, give a little sweetness to it. Buttermilk, salt, pepper, garlic, onion, and then we'll bread those into a cornflakes. Instead of just using the regular flour, we'll use a cornflakes. And
see, that's a creative, and thank you for sharing that. It's all those fun little twists and turns.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is becoming creative in what you're doing. And you know that. I mean, you got to always be creative and be fun with it and try to let others experience new and different ideas.
Yeah, and how do you make it your own? And how do you take something that's traditional and put your own spin on it? And I think we were talking about your grits. My husband and I tasted the little
grits.
Squares and oh my God, I'm salivating just thinking of your grits. But
gosh. We did. That was another fun thing. It was just taking regular grits, and I have seen where they've grilled polenta and they've done things like that. But we just took this idea and just said, let's cut them into squares and deep fry them, see what happens. And sure enough, people love them.
Oh, it is. And then I haven't tasted your cheddar biscuits. I hear that that's a signature thing.
That's our thing. That was one of the favorites of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, our biscuits and gravy. And the cheddar biscuits we make from scratch, 100% fresh ingredients, and we make them daily. And that's the key, is to make fresh food and serve it daily.
I can't thank you enough, but for making me hungry. So I think I'm ready to show up at your door again.
Well, thank you. You're always welcome.
Always. Oh, thank you.
You're always welcome.
Even if you're not there, you are there in spirit. So thank you so much. And to more, I want more breakfast ideas. Thanks a lot,
Thank you, Wendy.
Steve.
Thank you for your time.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.